quick discussion about two different approaches to budgeting within projects. Number one is what we call the traditional approach. And the traditional approach is used widely by government and a lot of other companies in order to supply funds in a timely manner for projects. Number two is called zero-based or project-based. So, traditional. Let's start here. I'm going to assume that we've got a project and the project cost is going to be $500,000, and the difference in a cost and a budget is the cost is, at the end, we would have incurred this. Project would have cost us $500,000, and the project is a 5-year project, just make the maths easy. So over 5 years we would have spent $500,000 on the project. Now the budget says, when do we need to spend each dollar? So budgeting kind of involves the scheduling of money within a project. When are we going to incur the cost? Traditional budgeting says, let's take this number divided by this number and spread out over our budgeting periods. I'm going to assume we budget every year. You know, it could be quarterly, it could be 6 monthly, but for us it's every year, just to make the maths easy. So at the end of year 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll move 5 a little bit over. 5, we're going to get some money. From a budgeting point of view, you can budget pro rata, which means that over the duration of a year, I will give the project or release the funds in that way. You can budget at the start of the financial period, so at the start of year 1, we'll give you the whole $100,000, or you can budget at the end. So at the end of year 1, we'll give you the whole $100,000. Those are 3 most common ways of actually scheduling funds in the traditional method. We're going to assume, because it works in our favour, everyone's favour, that we get the funds at the start. So we're going to get all the money for year 1 at the start of year 1. So start of year 1, we're going to get $100,000. Start of year 2, we're going to get $200,000. Start of year 3, we're going to get $300,000. Start of year 4, we're going to get $400,000. And start of year 5, we're going to get $500,000, which should give us sufficient funds to complete the project. So that's the traditional budgeting. You might relate to this if you're used to it. What does complicate this is the notion of efficiency curves. So a lot of companies, government departments are notorious for this, use what they call efficiency thinking. So what happens is, in year 1, we were given $100,000 to spend, but we only spend 30. Because if you think of level effort curve in projects, there's a concept phase. We're doing some planning, cool, but we're not spending a lot of money. So we only spent $30,000. So from an efficiency point of view, the department's saying, well, hang on, we can better use that money somewhere else. So instead of giving you another 100 in year 2, or probably what you need, $170,000 in year 2, we'll give you another 30. Another 30, and if you end up spending less, we'll even give you less. In theory, it actually works really well. For projects, it doesn't work great because of the shifting nature of work. In an operation where work is routine and constant, this works well because it gets us geared towards cost savings. When humans play around with this, what it makes us do is go, holy shit, we're going to be 70 grand under budget. We're going to lose 70 grand next year. So what do? We spend like crazy over here. And yeah, often that's kind of the inefficient spending. So the thing comes around to bite us because we're really, really good here, and when we get that point where we realise that we're not going to spend our budget, we lose it, all those efficiencies are lost. That's traditional budgeting in a nutshell. Its limitations in a project are Remember the level effort curve in a project? So during the concept phase, level effort is quite low. As we start going to planning, we start ramping up. But when we hit implementation, level effort in a project goes through the roof. And effort is denoted by the expenditure of or consumption of money, resources, and so on. You can see that just go up. So the traditional budgeting model doesn't really work too well because it doesn't reflect this. It reflects this, a straight line operation. And often when it gets applied to projects, what happens is when we need to spend the money, I'm going to impose this curve here. Okay. So this is the actual curve we need. We don't have sufficient money, so we need to delay works until the next reporting period. The workaround for this, and I'll draw it in black, is the zero-based. And the zero-based says, look, same numbers we'll play with over here. What work are we going to do in period number 1? And we grab the work breakdown structure, we grab all the work that we plan to do in that period, we cost it out. So what's the cost of all that work? Great, it's $30,000. Great. So we'll give you $30,000 at the start of that period. Year 2, what work do you plan to do? Great, what's the cost of that? It's $170,000. Great, we'll give you $170,000 at the end of year 2. So your combined spend would have been $200,000 at the end of year 2. So if you keep doing this, what you end up with in projects is you often end up with, it's very, very dodgy, and I'll just draw it again, you end up with something that looks like this. And this is a cumulative cost curve. In projects they call it an S-curve because it looks a little bit like an S. And often you can see where the implementation stage is, where you just get this massive rise in the gradient. This is a better way to budget projects because you're getting the money in line with the nature of the activities of the work. So in planning, that money can be better spent somewhere else. There's no point allocating it to the project team. Make sure we've got enough for next period, but just hold on to it. When it comes to implementation, we've planned what we're going to do, so we get budgeted for it. So in year 3, we might actually get given a budget of $300,000 or $400,000, depends on the nature of the work. So that's a zero-based model.